Okay, I'll read out the tutorial assignment from Sister Jaihun. Hers is question 1. Discuss the importance of Dhammapada as a handbook of Buddhism. For her introduction, Dhammapada is one of the 15 books of the Buddhaka Nikaya of the Sutta Pitaka. In the countries of Theravada Buddhism, the Dhammapada is regarded as an inexhaustible source of guidance and spiritual inspiration, as the wise counselor to which to turn for help in resolving the difficult moral and personal problems inescapable in daily life. Just as the Buddha is looked upon as the human Kalyamita or spiritual friend par excellence, so the Dhammapada is looked upon as the scriptural Kalyamita per excellence, a small embodiment in verse of the boundless wisdom and great compassion of the Master. The term Dhammapada combines Dhamma, the Buddha's teaching, truth, or phenomena, and Pada, which is foot, path, or verse, often translated as the path of Dhamma or verses of truth. Most of the verses have been taken from the discourse of the Buddha. It has been noted that more than 2/3 of the verses are taken from the discourses contained in 2 collections of the Buddha's discourses known as the Samyutta Nikaya and Anguttara Nikaya. The 5th century Bhaddanta Charya Buddhaghosa wrote a commentary on Dhammapada named Dhammapada Takkata. In the commentaries, the 423 verses of Dhammapada are described into 26 chapters, each with a heading. The verses are described along with around 300 background stories to provide a context of each verse. Each story relates to different occasion in the life of the Buddha in which the Buddha explained the teaching using parables, similes, and other examples familiar to the local societies at the time, so that the audience from different backgrounds with varying capacities were able to understand them. The slim anthology of verses constitute a perfect compendium of the Buddha's teaching, comprising the essential teachings elaborated at length. Some examples of the doctrinal subjects are mind, citta vagga, the qualities of the arhat, arhata vagga, the noble path of deliverance, magga vagga, and the danger of craving as cause of suffering, tanha vagga. The importance of Dhammapada. Dhammapada is an important source of the Buddha's teaching. It is deemed as an essential handbook of Buddhism as it addresses the 4 needs of man, according to the renowned scholar monk Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi suggested a schematism of 4 levels of instruction set forth in the Dhammapada to address the 4 needs. That is, 3 primary and 1 perennial spiritual needs of man. These 4 needs are, firstly, the needs to achieve welfare and happiness in the present life, in the immediately visible sphere of human relations. The second one being the need to attain a favorable future life in accordance with the principles that confirms our highest moral institution. The third being the need for transcendence, to overcome all the limits imposed upon us and to attain a freedom that is boundless, timeless, and irreversible. Fourth, the attainment of the highest goal, which is the Nibbana. The fourfold schematism in Dhammapada. First, the need to establish human welfare and happiness in the immediately visible domain of personal relations. It touches on the need to live at peace with oneself and others, upholding precepts and training rules, remove conflicts. The most general advice of Dhammapada gives is to avoid all evil, to cultivate good, to cleanse one's own mind. This is said to be the counsel of all enlightened one, which is stated in verse 183. To abstain from evil, the disciples are advised to avoid irritation in deed, word, and thought, and to exercise self-control over body, speech, and mind, which is stated in verses 231 until 234. One should adhere scrupulously to the 5 moral aspects: abstinence from destroying life, from stealing, from sexual misconduct, from lying, and from intoxication, stated clearly in verses 246 and 247. The disciple should treat all beings with kindness and compassion, live honestly, control his desire, speak the truth, and live a sober, upright life. He should fulfill all his duties to parents, to immediate family, to friends, and to recluses and Brahmans, which is stated in verses 331 until 333. The Dhammapada teaches us that the true conquest of hatred is achieved by non-hatred, by forbearance, by love, in verse 5. The quality distinguish the superior human being, sabrisa, are generosity, truthfulness, patience, and compassion. By following these principles, we can live at peace with our conscience and in harmony with our fellows. The second, schematism, refers to the need to attain a favorable future life. Buddha taught the law of karma. The law of karma ensures that our morally determinate actions do not disappear into nothingness, but rather continue on as traces in the deep hidden layers of the mind, where they function in such a way that our good deeds eventually issue in happiness and success, our evil deeds in suffering and misery. Karma means volitional actions via body, speech, and mind, or mind. The action may be either wholesome or unwholesome. Wholesome when they are rooted in generosity, amity, and understanding, whereas unwholesome when they spring from greed, hatred, and delusion. The essentials of the law of karma, however, are made perfectly clear. Our will actions determine the sphere of existence into which we will be reborn after death. The circumstances and endowments of our lives within any given form of rebirth and our potentials for spiritual progress or decline. If one acts or speaks with an evil mind, sufferings follow just as the wheel follows the foot of the draft ox. If one acts or speaks with a pure mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs, which is mentioned in verse 1 and 2. The third schematism refers to the need to attain freedom that is boundless, timeless, and irreversible. Having understood that all conditioned things are intrinsically unsatisfactory and fraught with danger, the mature disciples aspire for deliverance from the ever-repeating round of rebirths. The third level of instruction found in the Dhammapada sketches the theoretical framework of the inspiration for final liberation and lays down guidelines pertaining to the practical disciplines that can bring this aspiration to fulfillment. The theoretical framework is supplied by the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, which the Dhammapada calls the best of all truths in verse 273, where suffering, the origins of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path leading to the cessation of sufferings. The Dhammapada declares that the Eightfold Path is the only way to deliverance from suffering in verse 274. It says, full release from sufferings comes from the purification of wisdom and its path alone, and this path alone, with its stress on the right view and the cultivation of insight, leads to fully purified wisdom and complete understanding of liberating truth. The Buddha assures us that by walking the path, we will escape from sufferings. However, he also cautions us about our own responsibility. We ourselves must take the effort, for the Buddha only points out the way in verses 275, 276. The fourth schematism in Dhammapada, the attainment of the highest goal, Nibbana, is the celebration and acclamation of those who have gained the fruit of the path and won the final goal. Although the Dhammapada contains several verses referring to those on the lower stages of attainment, its primary emphasis is on the individual who has reached the fourth and final fruit of liberation, the Arahants. The Arahant is depicted in two full chapters, in chapter 7 under his own name, and in chapter 26, the last chapter, under the name Brahmana, the holy man. In this very life, the Arahant has realized the end of suffering, laying down the burden of the five aggregates. He has transcended the ties of both merit and demerit. He is sorrowless, stainless, and pure. He is free from attachment and has plunged into deathlessness. The Buddha is the supreme teacher who depends on no one else for guidance, who has reached perfect enlightenment through his own self-evolved wisdom, mentioned in verse 353. He is the giver of refuge, and is he himself the first of the three refuges. Those who take refuge in the Buddha, his doctrine, and his order are released from all suffering after seeing with proper wisdom the Four Noble Truths, as mentioned in verses 190 and 192. As conclusion, the Dhammapada is an important handbook of Buddhism. It outlines many profound teachings of the Lord Buddha and is up to us to learn and put them into practice. We are free to choose between good and evil and must bear full responsibility for our decisions. And time and again, the Dhammapada sounds this challenge to human freedom. We are the makers and the masters of ourselves, the protectors or destroyers of ourselves. We are our own saviors, and there is no one else who can save us, as mentioned in the Dhammapada verses 160, 165, and 380. Even the Buddha can only indicate the path to deliverance. The work of treading it lies with the disciples, as mentioned in verses 275 to 276. In the end, we must choose between the way that leads back into the world, to the realm of becoming, and the way that leads out of the world to Nibbana. So this is her references.
Okay, good. Anybody, any comment? I think sufficient. If you can remember everything. Okay.
Just a comment, because when I check in Kudaka Nikaya, in the access to insight, it's either 15 or 18 books. But in Sutta Central, it's 20 books. So that's why I did not put in the number of books. I put numerous books.
I think different sources, they quoted different reference which differs from one to another, because I don't think the Panacles is able to convey exactly the same content.
So
So there might be
like
differences.
it seems that, for example, the Burmese version, in Sri Lanka, got 18, Burmese got 18. That one, the 3 additional we know. The Melinda Pangha is definitely an addition. So that one, in Sutta Central, they have Melinda Pangha. So that one is different. Okay, but somehow it was added in Sutta Central. I was surprised.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's different preference and interpretation. Okay, I shall start mine. So mine is question number 2. Dhammapada is a perfect compendium of the Buddha's teaching, comprising all the essential principles elaborated at length in the Pali Canon. Elucidate this statement. So as introduction, the Dhammapada is the second book of the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is the minor collection of the Sutta Pitaka. It is the best known and most widely esteemed text in the Pali Tipitaka. It consists of 423 verses in the form of poetic utterance, mostly attributed to the Buddha in response to a particular episode. These verses are arranged in 26 chapters arranged under various headings. In Dhammapada are enshrined the basic tenets of the Buddha's teaching, known as the Dhamma, offering a body of instruction, explaining the true nature of existence, and showing the path that leads to liberation. The Dhamma are free from all dogmas and inscrutable claims to authority, but founded solidly upon the bedrock of the Buddha's own clear comprehension of reality through meditative contemplations. It functions as a poetic anthology that condenses themes found around the Tika Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, and Anguttara Nikaya. So Dhammapada is the compendium of the Buddhist teaching. The Dhammapada is essentially in the form of brief verses, which where it gathers some principles in mnemonic kathas relating to the doctrines such as moral causality, karma, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, and the 3 characteristics, that is, anicca, dukkha, anatta, guarding the mind, right speech and action, renunciation, and liberation. The verses are divided into 26 chapter headings, which function as a kind of rubric for classifying the diverse poetic utterance of the Buddha. For example, chapter 2, hatefulness, chapter 3, the mind, chapter 5, the fool, chapter 6, the wise man, chapter 15, happiness, etc. This may be a metaphoric symbol rather than the point of doctrine. There also seems to be no intentional design in the order of the chapters themselves, though at certain points, a loose thread of the development can be discerned. So according to Bhikkhu Buddhi, the content of the Dhammapada was classified into 4 schematism according to the diversity of the audience, irrespective of the chapter's heading. So number 1 has been mentioned by Sister Chai Hun. It is about the first level concerned with the establishment of well-being and happiness in the immediate visible sphere of concrete human relations in this present life. So the guidance are largely identical with the basic ethical injunction proposed by most of the great world religions, where they are freed from fetishistic mooring and grounded upon 2 directly variable foundations: concern for one's own integrity and long-range happiness, and concern for the welfare of those adhere to the 5 precepts to avoid all evil, to cultivate goods, and to cleanse one's mind. advocates virtues such as generosity, truthfulness, patience, and compassion. So there are many examples mentioned in several verses, which is also linked with certain suttas. Second, the good in the future life. In this second level of teaching, it shows the morality does not exhaust its significance in the attribution to human felicity here and now, but experience a far more critical influence molding personal destiny. So here, the Buddha introduced the law of karma and distinguishes karma into two primary ethical types, where he showed there is unwholesome karma, which is action rooted in the mental states of greed, hatred, and delusion, and wholesome karma, which is action rooted in the mental state of generosity and or detachment, goodwill, and understanding. So they are examples where the will actions a person perform in the course of his life may fade from memory without a trace, but once performed, they leave subtle imprint in the mind, sit with the potential to come to fruition in the future when they meet conditions conducive to their ripening. Eventually, meet its due retribution, the good with happiness, the bad with suffering. The third level of teaching set forth the theoretical framework and practical discipline emerging from the aspiration for final deliverance. So here, having understood the intrinsic inadequacy of all conditioned things, it will lead to the ultimate goal to Nibbana. And the fourth one, the highest goal. So the fourth level of teaching in the Dhammapada provides no new disclosure of the doctrine or practice, but an acclamation and exaltation of those who have reached the goal. In the Pali Canon, the stages of definite attainment along the way to Nibbana are enumerated as 4. The stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and the Arhat. The Arhat ideals reaches the optimal exemplification, the promulgator and the master of the entire teaching. So they are examples. So the strength of Dhammapada in elaboration of essential principles. First, it is clarity and brevity. 423 verses distill core teaching into memorable lines, easy to recall and apply in daily life. Second, universal ethics, strong emphasis on intention karma, non-harming, restraint, and compassion makes it accessible across tradition. So you can see themes like mind leads all, hatred never ends by hatred. 3, practical guidance, repeated counsel on mindfulness, effort, speech, anger, craving, friendship, and right livelihood aligned with the Four Noble Path. Number 4, poetic inspiration versus nurture path and moral courage, often used for reflection and chanting, supporting daily practice. 5, pair it with context. So it can be read along with related suttas. So there are examples. For example, for chapter 17, Koda Waka, it is getting rid of the resentment or anger and others, so forth. 6, integrate with practice. Use verses to frame meditative theme. For example, mindfulness of mind, citta, with Dhammapada, verse 3536. Impermanence, Dhammapada 277 until 279. Anyway, they are also witness of the Dhammapada as we try to claim it to be a perfect compendium of the Buddha's teaching. Firstly, it lacked full context. Verses are aphoristic. It is just a very brief statement and no in-depth elaboration of a particular concept or doctrine. One must consult broader Nikaya texts for precision. Without sutta context for commentaries, meanings could be misunderstood if taken out of context. For instance, the Buddha might seem to voice out contradictory advice to different people. In Dhammapada, verse 61, the Buddha mentioned better to wander alone rather than keep company with foolish people. Whereas in Dhammapada 78, the Buddha advised Venerable Channa to associate with the wise and noble. Number 2, doctrinal sparsity. Dhammapada does not systematically teach dependent origination in full detail, nor does it do for jhana factors, formless attainment, the graduation of insight knowledge. Anatta is not given in analytical detail, nor the fine points of Vinaya. These key teachings are only hinted at or just a brief statement without in-depth elaboration of a particular doctrine or concept. One needs to do further readings on Sutta and Vinayas to gain a full picture of those concepts. Number 3, the Dhammapada lacks systematic arrangement. The work is simply a collection of inspirational or pedagogical verses on the fundamental of the Dhamma to be used as a basis of personal edification and instruction. It is in any given chapter, several successive verses may have been spoken by the Buddha on a single occasion, and thus among themselves will exhibit a meaningful development or a set of variation on a theme. By and large, the logic behind the grouping together verses into a chapter is merely the concern with a common topic. Number 4, textual variance. Different recensions, that is, either in the Pali version, Gandhari, Sanskrit, Tibetan, or the Mahayana Udana Vaga, they have variations. Translation choices and can shift nouns. Pali terms like Dhamma, Citta, Kusala, Akusala can be flattened in English. As conclusion, Dhammapada of the Pali Canon may be considered as a compendium of the Buddha's teaching, comprising of all the essential principles. For example, heedfulness, ethical conduct, mental cultivation, and wisdom. Anyway, these core teachings are not elaborated at length. It only gives a concise gist of the Buddha's doctrine in the poetic form. We need to refer to Dhammapada commentary and other suttas to view the doctrine in full length without taking of context. We have to bear in mind that the utterance were tailored to suit the individual needs. That may sound contradictory when we compare it with some other teachings addressed to other people from different background and mental maturity. The Dhammapada is an excellent doorway and daily companion, but the Dhamma's full breadth requires wider canon and living practice. It is precise, precious, and widely loved, but it is not a complete nor perfect compendium. So these are the reference.
Okay, thank you. But this well presented, and also beware, many of these explanation of this Dhammapada are further commentaries. Even the story are added in later state. That's why early part the Dhammapada is very brief. It's only to latest development like the commentary by Buddha Gosa, then they have more elaboration. But it's an introduction, especially for teaching those beginners. That's a very good thing for Dhammapada and Jakarta story. Anybody adding anything? If not, go to the next question.
Can I comment something? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sister Sumitra, I like your article. Because you look at it from a different perspective, including the weaknesses. So that is one thing which I feel you have put it in a structured way. But I think if you look at your questions,
Mm-mm.
you did not, because they want you to elaborate and then in the Pali canon,
I see.
where your witness, because you doesn't actually link to the canon to explain,
Okay.
right? And that is what the question want. So
Mm-mm-mm.
the witness, you can take it out. I mean, in
I
terms of
see.
we reference the question, okay,
Mm-mm-mm.
then instead you should look for more suttas that are relevant to the subtitles that you have highlighted.
Okay.
That
Okay.
way may be closer to the question.
Yeah. I know I'm way out because I couldn't figure out how to really put it right. I tried to look for a lot of so-called I did look through Noble AI. I tried to ask questions from different perspective, but in the end, I just couldn't see really how it goes.
Yeah, it's
In
not
the end,
easy.
yeah.
It's not
Uh,
easy to research on how to link them up. I think
yeah.
it requires a lot of effort.
Yeah. I
So,
haven't reached that standard yet. I'm still trying to read, but only superficial understanding.
okay.
Anyway, thanks for the suggestion. Thank you.
So I would like to have your article also, so that for my own uh, reading as well, further
No
reading.
problem. All
Uh,
this will be uploaded to the classroom. Later on, after I've edited everything, you look for the classroom announcement. The notification will shows you open the site for details. Then you can refer because I will
okay.
put, as usual, all the link to all the documents that are uploaded there. Even if you look for the shared folder, it'll be there. Go according to D. Uh, you have sorry, T6. Then you see the question number and who's the contributor. It's all linked.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
So the third question is my topic. So I'll go to the question 3. So this is the YMBA Diploma Dhamma Assignment 7 on Dhammapada. So my question is number 3. The title is Examine how skillfully the Buddha uses similes to explain abstruse doctrinal principles in the Dhammapada stanzas. So introduction. In the Tipitaka, it could be read, felt, and deduced that the Buddha used many ways and styles in his teaching. As he taught mainly to human beings, the tradition said he used local dialects or languages to convey and express the teachings. So in the Sutta Nipata, there are long, medium, and short discourses. While in Dhammapada, under the Kuddata Nipata, Buddha used few words in short phrases or sentences to teach and sometimes express elaborate or complex Dhamma in very simplified manner that common people could easily relate and understand. For this discussion, let's examine how skillfully the Buddha used some life examples or similes to express his teaching, from basic life to mental cultivation and culminates in supramundane, Lokutara. So the similes in his teaching I'll divide into a few subtitles. The first one is prevention and abstinence. In Dhammapada verse 1 to 3, Vanijo va bayam magam apasato mahagano visam jivitu kammo va papani tari vajeni. This is from the Taiwanese website. The translation are from the Taiwanese one. Though some of the translation is not quite familiar to me, but I just use it for reference. Just as a merchant with great wealth but small escort avoids a perilous route, and as one desiring to prolong life avoids the risk of poison, so should one avoid evil deeds. So here Buddha articulated and compared wealth to life, perilous road to poison. Now, wealth to life, danger to poison. Now, so this is two different aspects where common people are very particular about. So people value wealth and did their best to keep them and prevent losing them. Similarly, people also desire long life, and this Buddha cleverly attract the people's attention and desire to know. Buddha explicitly remind them to be careful of and avoid the poison of life. That is the evil deeds. Evil deeds are the poison of one's life. Similar to the way the merchant avoids the dangerous fruits, because it will cause him to lose a lot of wealth. So in the sutras, there are numerous discourses that Buddha advised and guide the lay people how to live their life well and avoid those downfalls that were detrimental to them, like, for example, Sutta Nipata 1.6, Parabhava Sutta, Digha Nikaya 31, Sigala Sutta, and Sutta Nipata 2.4, Mangala Sutta. Okay, the second title is the effort and persistency. In Dhammapada 239, I will skip the Pali verse. I'll go to the translated verse. Progressively, little by little, from moment to moment, the wise person should remove his impurities, just as a smith remove the dross of the silver. Here, Buddha showed his knowledge of mundane artisan skills. He used the parallel of a silversmith skills and why we remove the dross, which is the impurities from the silver, so that the silver can be pure and wood, the money. And this Buddha compared to the importance of removing the impurities of one's mind so that one could be wise. If there is a lot of impurities in one's mind, one would not be wise. One will be obscured by various views and ideas and experience of one's life, not the real thing. And the second point, Buddha highlighted that this mental purification, that is removing of mental impurities, was a gradual process that is little by little, moment by moment, just like the smith with the dross. Some people might move faster or progress faster, others slower, depending on various conditions like one's wisdom. It could be innate wisdom that is born with, or it could be cultivated through learning and understanding. Efforts and persistency, patience and skill, as indicated in some of the suttas. The third is virtues and benefits. In Dhammapada 109, to him who habitually honors and respects elders, all things increase: age, beauty, happiness, and strength. Dhammapada 54, the fragrance of the flowers does not waft against the wind, nor does the fragrance of sandalwood, saga, and jasmine flowers. But the fragrance of the virtuous spreads even against the wind. The presence of virtuous persons pervades in all directions. Dhammapada 129. Everyone fears violence. Everyone fears death. Imagining oneself in the position of another, one should neither feel nor cause another to feel. So, in Dhammapada 109, Buddha taught the lay people the benefits of honoring and respecting elders. It is an active virtue, that means positive virtue, positive action. These benefits that is age, beauty, happiness, and strength, were and still are highly desired and valued by most people. Thus, it easily caught people's attention. It's also easy to relate and remember. In ancient India, and even now, jasmine flowers were commonly used by the Indians as offering to the gods and dignitaries. That is, they used the garland of jasmine flowers because of its fragrance. While sandalwood fragrance was even better and was used by the rich because it was very expensive due to its limited supply. So in Dhammapada 54, the Buddha aptly used the fragrance of jasmine flower and sandalwood as the comparisons to the fragrance or reputation of the virtuous. That means the virtuous people's reputation is even better than the fragrance of sandalwood. And the spread of the reputation of virtuous person was even better and wider than the fragrance of sandalwood, as it could travel against the wind direction, and it pervades in all directions. Immaterial of the wind direction. So it is even better than the fragrance of flowers. So this similarly makes his teaching easy to understand, remember, and recall. In Dhammapada 129, Buddha brought out people's inner fear of violence and death. It is not oneself alone, that is myself, but actually universal to all beings, that they fear violence and death. Thus, logically, since one fears violence and death, therefore one should not hurt nor kill another. So in various sutta too, Buddha taught the benefits of boundless metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, or the form Brahma Vihara. So number 4 is the mundane to supramundane. Dhammapada 204. Health is the highest good. Contentment is the greatest wealth. The trustful is the best kinsman. Nibbana is the supreme bliss. Buddha used lay people's desire and wish as a comparison in his teaching. He used gift, wealth, and good kinsmen as examples to compare with the importance of one's health, contentment, and trustfulness, which were also known and valued by the people then and even now. Then he further brought out to the people's attention that the best bliss or happiness was the supreme bliss of Nibbana. This Dhammapada bliss was way better than all the mundane happiness combined. Similarly, in many suttas, Buddha preempted and reminded his monk not to be waylaid by mundane happiness, but to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Number 5, moral purification, virtuous, and stable mind. In Dhammapada 81, just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so are the wise person not ruffled by either blame or praise. Buddha used the image of rock and wind to express how a wise person, like a rock, was not easily influenced by the wind of changing emotion caused by blame or praise. In the sutta as well as in real life, a person who is morally upright, virtuous, he has no fear of being criticized or reprimanded by others, nor he has self-remorse. When he's been praised, he maintains a calm mind and evaluates the praise if it is equitable and not carried away by ego. His mind is stable like a rock. 6. Importance of guarding the mind. Dhammapada 13. As rain penetrates an ill-thatched house, so does lust penetrate an undeveloped mind. Dhammapada 14. As rain does not penetrate a well-thatched house, so lust does not penetrate a well-developed mind. In India, there were and still is 3 seasons in a year. Rainy seasons lasted for 3 to 4 months, whereby the monks went into retreat called Vasa. Buddha used the weather and the local conditions to teach and guide the lay people and the monks. These Dhammapada 13 and 14 were good examples. Buddha used ill-thatched versus well-thatched house and rain versus lust as comparison to how an undeveloped mind is easily penetrated by lust, while a well-developed mind is able to prevent and stop lust from entering the mind. Buddha urged the importance of understanding and how to develop the mind. The house is like the sense faculties. A well-thatched house is like a well-guarded sense faculty of a person. Rain does not penetrate a well-thatched house, so does lust not penetrate a well-developed or well-guarded faculties mind. Precepts and abstinence are 2 key factors for virtues and mental cultivations, and frequently stated in the sutta, both for mundane life and those on the spiritual path. 7. Urgency of spiritual cultivation, or samvega. In Dhammapada 41, before long, alas, this body will lie down on the earth, despised, bereft of consciousness, even as a useless log. In this verse, Buddha went against the norm of society and most teaching. There's a topic considered sensitive in ancient India and even now to many societies. Buddha explicitly said that this dead body, without consciousness, will return to the earth just like a log in a timber or a timber is natural and part of nature. To some people, this verse has great impact. That life is short, there is urgency for mental and spiritual cultivation. Soon, one will die, and therefore there is no time to waste on minor and mundane things. Do what is important now and not tomorrow. 8. Mental development requires right goal, effort, and persistence. Dhammapada 33. As the fletcher straightens an arrow, the wise straighten their minds. Dhammapada 80 and 145. Irrigators lead the water, arrowsmiths straighten the arrow with shaft. Carpenters shape the timber, the virtuous control themselves. Buddha skillfully used the then, and at that time, highly skilled artisans who were valued, looked up upon by the society, like the irrigator in agriculture, the arrowsmith, or the fletcher in the metalworks, or the carpenter in the woodwork, and compare that to a spiritual cultivator on the mental cultivation. So mental cultivation and development were critical components to ascetic life and renunciance. Mental cultivation leads to one being virtuous, wise, and having wisdom. Buddha also highlighted that mental cultivation was a craft, workable and repeatable. Anyone trainable was able if he has clear and right goal coupled with persistent efforts. 9. Karma. Dhammapada 1-7. Neither in the sky, nor in the middle of the ocean, nor in a mountain peak can be found a place where one can escape the effects of these evil deeds. In this verse, it reminds us the effect or the vitaka of our deeds. That is the karma. When it ripens, there is no place one can hide, escape, or avoid. It's a reminder to us not to commit evil deeds. Let's not do even a small evil deed, nor take it lightly. It will haunt us, and one has to face the consequence. Number 10, complex teaching in brief and is embedded in a pair of verses. Dhammapada 1. Mind precedes all phenomenal. Mind is their chief. They are made of mind. If one speaks or acts with the corrupted mind, suffering follows like the cart follows the ox. Dhammapada 2. Mind precedes all phenomena. Mind is their chief. They are made of mind. If one speaks or acts with a purified mind, happiness follows like a never departing shadow. These are the first two verses in Dhammapada and in chapter 1 called pairs. Here the Buddha highlights the importance of mind, citta, and its primacy in his teaching. The mind is the chief, and all phenomena are mind-made. Our experiences are conditioned by the mind. This invites us to explore and understand the concept of dependent origination, paticca samuppada. Then, karma vipaka. Speaks or acts are the actions which signify karma, and these are tied to intention, cetana. If the intention is corrupted or unwholesome, the result or effect is evil or suffering, like the ox pulling the heavy cart. On the other hand, if the intention is purified or wholesome, the result is light or happiness, like a weightless shadow. It makes the law of causality vivid, very clear. Thus, this invites us to explore and understand the law of karma in the Sutta Pitaka with greater details. The third aspect is ethic and mental cultivation, the Sila Bhavana. The speaks or acts and the corrupted or purified mind indicates that there are close correlation of ethic and mental state. Since the mind precedes and determines one's speech and action, it also implies that ethical speech or action requires inner mental training. These two verses work like seeds. That means the seeds of the idea, seeds of the what you call of a plant, that point to some core principles in the teaching, and with image-rich similes. So now we come to a conclusion. Thus, with the above sample of example, it's a sample only. I did not go through all. Basically, the list of Dhammapada verses are mostly in the guidebook of YMBA. I did not explore too much out of it, except one or two which happens to come across that I find it meaningful to add in. So we could conclude that the Buddha was very skillful in using day-to-day activities and conditions which were known and familiar to him and his listeners, and he had used them aptly as tools for his teachings. It was brief, easy to remember and rehearse the short phrases or sentences. Yet it's striking and impactful and has useful meanings and teachings embedded within. That's why in the Buddha Nusati, among the 9 qualities of Buddha are incomparable teacher of capable person, Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati, and teachers of gods and humans, Satta Deva Manusanam. And in the Dhamma Nusati, the 6 qualities of Dhamma include the Dhamma is well taught, swakato, timeless or immediately effective, akaliko, and can be known by the wise pachatam veditabu. So these are the notes. The italic is in Pali, the bold is the title or the sutta, and then there are also a few other notations and the reference. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good work. Quite a comprehensive thing.